Welcome to the Locker Room Finance podcast. My name is Connor Smith, owner of Locker Room Finance. We provide financial education to student athletes that they actually enjoy so that they can win with money. This interview with UTSA football legend and a good friend, Hunter Duplessis, was recorded in August of 2024. Hope you enjoy. Lots of great wins off the foot of Hunter Duplessis. A couple that you probably remember. Currently works in IT.
Yes.
And has a wife, Jordan, and a new 6-month-old, Balin. And so I'm excited to talk to him today about sports and football and money and kind of how it all relates in his time as a student athlete. So, Hunter, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm happy to be here and just kind of talk about some of my experiences. I think they're pretty unique to the circumstances I was up against at the time. And maybe somebody kind of relates to it and maybe you don't at all. But I'm just happy to share while I'm here.
Yeah, awesome. So first I have to ask, which one was your favorite walk-off victory? It's either Texas State, which was Jeff Traylor's first game at UTSA, right? Or it's Memphis, which was the crazy comeback. We were down like 21-0 and you walked off at the end. Which one's your favorite?
Yeah, I would definitely say the Memphis game winner was my favorite.
Yeah.
It was a great walk-off, come from behind victory. It was a little bit of a farther field goal, so I felt like it kept everybody on the edge of their seat. There was no give me kick there.
Yeah.
But it was cool. And then the feeling of celebrating that, you go from this roller coaster of we're down so bad, not playing the way we should be, to, oh my gosh, we just walked this sucker off and we get to go home with a dub.
Yeah.
I mean, that was,
and that was the undefeated season. So that was right.
We were still going on undefeated at the time.
We
ended with
4-0 or whatever.
One loss, and then we came back and eventually won the conference championship.
That's right.
Year. So it was cool. Yeah. But yeah, at that time we were trying to preserve an undefeated record, which was awesome too.
I remember we were watching the game at Pinkerton's that day, and we were all so mad at the beginning of the game. And by the end, we're like standing on tables chanting your name. And
yeah, it's very surreal. Yeah, it was cool.
So as a student athlete, I know the current era of college athletics is a little different than when you were in with NIL and everything. But when you were a college athlete, what would you say were the financial rhythms that you were in? And anything that was maybe difficult about managing your money as a student athlete, or kind of how you navigated that?
Yeah, my situation, well, at first when I got to UTSA, I was just straight up a walk-on. So there was not really an income. My parents were supporting me completely, and I felt obligated to be a good steward with that money 100%, because if my parents are paying for my college, I got to make every nickel and dime go further and farther, because I have a respect for that. And it was definitely just given to me. I didn't do anything to necessarily earn that.
Yeah.
But when I finally transitioned into a scholarship.
What year was that?
That had to have been in 2019. So it was going into the 2019 season that I got the starting field goal job, and I also got put on full scholarship.
Awesome.
That was interesting in itself because I had like a set amount of income, if you want to call it that, with a scholarship check. And then my mind kind of shifted because I was thinking, okay, I know I have X amount and rent is going to cost this much. So what do I do with the rest? And I started thinking towards saving and then investing down the road. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there, but definitely not as much as like you hear of guys signing NIL deals. What do you do with all that money? How can you make it go further in life? So you're not just banking on an NFL career at the end of it all, or maybe you do so well with it that you're getting, dividends on dividends and returns, and then you're set. But it was definitely interesting, and I had some kind of financially, I had some big goals at the time too that I knew I wanted to achieve and save up for.
What were those goals?
One was getting married in college. Yeah. So Jordan and I, my wife, we got married in 2020, right before we graduated. And I knew I still had another football season because they granted the COVID year.
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't going to be working necessarily full time while I'm playing football. So then those margins got very, very slim of like, okay, I know this much is going towards our wedding fund and we can only save this much moving forward personally for when we're out of college and working full-time jobs. So that was very difficult in itself. And then I knew I wanted to be a homeowner too, somewhere down the line. So I'm like, okay, I got to find money. I don't know where it's at, but I'll make the money what it is, and I'll put it away where I can. Yeah.
So was it, you're 19 years old maybe when you get put on scholarship, maybe 20?
Yeah, maybe like 20 years old.
Okay, so as a 20-year-old, you start making an income through your scholarship, stipend checks, things like that, and you decide, I'm going to start saving this money? What was it, either within you or maybe your upbringing? Like, what made you want to save that money and not go and spend it?
I would say it was definitely how I was raised.
Okay.
The later half of like my high school career and things like that, my dad was promoted in the Army and doing pretty well for a household that had my mom, and then he was providing for 3 kids at the same time. If we rewind a little bit, as a kid, you're not realizing that you don't have much money. You're just happy, like, hey, you know, mom and dad fed me. They're spending time with me. I get to sit down and watch my favorite show. But then you grow a little bit older and you're like, okay, there was a time where the budget was pretty tight.
Yeah.
And so for me, I wanted to start saving early, not out of fear that I was going to be poor or living in poverty. That was never the case.
Just to develop the habit.
Right. I developed the habit and have that sense of security between me and my wife. And then, you know, you said I have my 6-month-old now, but I just want him to have a sense of security if he ever has the realization of like, oh, okay, mom and dad provide and they communicate about money. And I see those conversations. So just creating that healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So NIL came around the year after you, right?
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to participate in NIL, what would your like dream partnership be? Who would you want to sponsor you? What goods or services would you receive?
That's a really good question. I feel like I'm just a meathead when it comes to the weight room stuff.
Yeah.
Like a rogue,
dude,
a freaking rogue partnership, like a power rack being delivered. Like there's this Jack kicker that is at UTSA and he's posting this gym content. He benches and squats this, but like we gotta ride this wave, guys. Yeah. And just to see some of like those barbells and dumbbells coming in and have a full setup where I can promote them. Not that they need it. I mean, they kind of promote themselves.
Is your current garage setup, is it all Rogue?
Oh, no. That's all the dream.
That's the dream.
Yeah, that is the dream, but more of a Amazon find sort of a garage gym. Very humble.
Made it work
in there. Yes, made it work.
So I was talking to Everett, another UTSA kicker the other day.
Yeah.
And we were trying to remember your NFL Pro Day, how many reps you benched. It was 225, right?
Yeah.
And you benched
25 reps.
25. My goodness. I can get like 3.
It was just for fun too. It's like, does this really have any bearing on my third kicker? My talent as a, you know, hopefully an aspiring professional kicker? No. But you're there and you're having fun with the guys. So I'll talk a little crap and say, hey, I'm going to outbench you.
Talk a little bit about your professional football journey through the XFL and, you know, maybe possibilities with pro teams and things like that, and maybe touch a little bit on the financial side of it. I think a lot of people don't really know the kind of ins and outs of that.
Yeah. So I was invited after my career at UTSA, I did pro day, like you mentioned, and I was invited to the Denver Broncos mini camp, which was just like a really cool experience.
Yeah. And you get there on your own, you pay for it.
They pay for everything for you to get there, but you're not signing any sort of contract. They give you a little bit of stipend money when you show up just for, you know, that brief weekend or part of the week.
Food and stuff.
Yeah, basically. So that was a really cool experience. And then eventually I got a trial with the Houston Texans, and it was the same way. That's the nice thing about the NFL, I will say, is like when they offer a tryout for you, they're like, we've got your ticket, we've got your hotel. A lot of them have room service, which is, I mean, they're really setting you up to have hopefully the best tryout you could possibly have, which I respect. And it's a big business.
Yeah, better than like eating sandwiches in a Motel 6 and
you're just trying to figure it out, right? It's the NFL. So you're like, okay, this is awesome. The XFL, I didn't get signed during that period of time. It was more of a, you know, we'll call you back. And if something opens up and we really need you, maybe we'll sign you for 2 games or something.
Because those rosters, like they have, once you have your kicker, you have your kicker.
Oh, yeah. And if you have, you know, Brandon McManus, who's, I mean, he started for the Denver Broncos, I don't know how long. You're just kind of like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm going to be taking scout team reps for this guy. And I would gladly do so if I got signed here. So like, oh, okay. I mean, they're pretty set in their job. And then after that, I just continued working in IT because I'd been doing an internship. And then that translated into a full-time position where I was at. So I just continued that.
Is that where you still are?
Yeah, that's where I'm still at today. Cool. And then the idea of the XFL starts popping up. And I was like, okay, this is a cool opportunity. So I went to a camp or showcase that was in Southern California. And that one you had to pay for because this league is starting from the ground up. Yeah, it was all specialist.
Okay.
It was kickers and then snappers and punters. So all around a specialist camp. And I just had a really great tryout there, eventually translated into a job I went to the Houston Roughnecks and played there for a little bit. And everybody has the idea that if you're a part of any professional football team, you're rolling in the dough. It's not the case, but I thought the XFL did a great job of making sure we were taken care of.
Yeah.
It was a very sustainable income for the amount of time that we were there too. Because everybody's like, oh, well, you only made this much. I'm like, okay, yes, but you have to think the time that you worked there was like 3 months. So you made that much in 3 months.
Yeah.
And kudos to The Rock for finding the resources and all the entrepreneurship that he did.
And so were you still working your internship while you're in the XFL, or did you put a pause on that?
Yeah, I was working. So I was getting done with practice and film, and then I would come back and I would work an evening shift because we were all remote with my job, worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
And so I would just take care of things kind of over the evening and then on into the night and wake up, do it all over again, practice and work, which was pretty cool. And then now I'm just done with my career for now, still trying out for teams and back working my IT job in San Antonio.
That's awesome.
And that's kind of where my mind was. I didn't even know if I was going to play a single down of professional football. So I was like, okay, football doesn't last forever. Hopefully I live a long time and I can retire early and enjoy the rest of my life beyond. But yeah, I would definitely say it's the spending habits that get you there.
So as a father of a 6-month-old, how is your view of money or sports? I mean, how is your view changed now that you're a father?
It's changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a drastic shift because now where we were just providing for myself and, Jordan, it becomes, there's a whole nother life completely dependent on you. And that person, that human can't work or do anything.
He doesn't pay rent.
Right. Like he doesn't pay any of the bills. Wish he could though. That'd be great. So yeah, it is definitely a big shift into like, again, I talked about being a good steward with your money and how impactful that is, especially when you're involving other people like your family, your wife, or if you're a woman, your husband and your children. My goodness. So yeah, it's just, where can we spend responsibly, but also where can we spend to have some fun and step away from things, because we just had a 6-month-old.
Yeah.
And everybody says, oh, don't do anything. Don't go out. Don't have fun. It's just easier because you have to pack all this stuff. And we just took a trip to Utah. That was one of those things like, okay, do we absolutely need the vacation? Like nobody needs the vacation, but let's pay ourselves back a little bit. Like,
it was worth it.
We've done really well. And so we just said, screw it, packed the car and went on our way.
So you've talked a few times about being a good steward of your money. And I know you from a faith background, and has that influenced the way that you view your money, like biblically, or talk a little bit about how that plays into a factor when it comes to your finances?
Yeah, I would say it has definitely impacted the way that I view any sort of resource, like whether it be money or just food items, things like that, that give you some sort of sustenance or provision. None of that's guaranteed in my eyes. And there are a lot of people that are, living well below the poverty line that wish they had the problems that I have at the end of every day. And they go to sleep that way. And it does break my heart, but at the same time, to not take anything for granted. And when you spend your money, spend it well or give it well to somebody else, or, give through a church, something that you believe in. There's really no bias there either. There's no right answer for where you give your money, whether it's to somebody who needs it on the street corner, or if it's a church that you really believe in and you give through, or other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely kind of motivated me to take a different view or a different take on money. And like you said, just beyond money, like where do you believe that comes from? Do you believe your hard work is just by the sweat of your own brow, or do you believe that there is a higher power that looks after you and makes sure that you're okay and taken care of, and your family as well?
It's awesome. Mm-hmm. If I gave you right now, I took out $1,000 and gave it to you, and you had to spend it today, what would you buy?
Again, I'm an investor. I'm a penny pitcher. So
sure. That's why a joint account have to buy it.
And
you can't buy stocks. You can't. Spend it.
I think I would honestly just buy I would try to put it toward plane tickets to go somewhere.
Yeah,
because that's kind of where I'd go to Italy. Yeah, that's where my heritage. My family's from Italy. I'm not from Italy. My family long ago is from Italy.
We had spaghetti tonight.
Yeah. So we had spaghetti heritage. No, I did not hand roll and cut that pasta. So they would probably kind of spit on what I just made.
Yeah,
it'd be like, what's going on?
That was good.
Yeah, but it was good. Because I've just found that the experience of going to another country and even we went to Mexico recently.
Yeah.
It was so much more valuable, getting off the resort and going to one of the islands there and just seeing how people kind of hustle day to day and experiencing more of the culture. Even though it can be a little touristy, was awesome because I just don't know. One more thing that I could play with or have in my hands or do around the house doesn't appeal as much to me anymore as talking to my wife about, hey, remember when we went to Italy? We did that crazy wine tasting, down on that boat. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That speaks to my heart.
What is a financial mistake that you've made? Tell me that you had to learn the hard way.
There was Bitcoin.
What's your story with that?
No, if we would have known how Bitcoin blew up, maybe, it's crazy. But I don't think I really have many financial regrets because I was so frugal throughout my entire college career. If anything, it would be to try to not stress over finances as much.
I was going to say, do you ever regret being so tight with money?
100%. I think there's a balance to both because a lot of people, when I was playing football with them, I was always the clean-cut guy. I spoke well, but then I also manage my money super well, and I get good grades, and I do all this stuff. And that also comes from a place of perfectionism and that sense of pressure that I put on myself that isn't healthy.
And the military family probably plays into that.
Right. So they don't see that side, and I don't give them, the opportunity to see it all the time because it could be, that vulnerability could be viewed as weakness, and you go into this whole social complex with that. But yeah, there are times that I'm like, man, it'd be cool to spend a little money and just not always feel that kind of knee-jerk reaction to it.
Just not care so much a little bit.
Yeah, and just know that you have a plan in place and you're sticking to it. I mean, I break my budget down in percentages. So it's as long as you're staying within your boundaries, you can spend money. You're not saying not to go have fun or have a dinner or a date night with your wife. Go do it and have fun.
Yeah. Just do it within the context of your plan.
Yes. 100%.
So other than the thing we talked about today, if you were talking to an 18-year-old, they're a freshman about to start playing football in college, what would your advice be to them when it comes to managing their money throughout being a college athlete?
My biggest piece of advice would just be have a plan going into it and a written out plan, not just an idea that if I'm making this much and trying to do those in your head calculations because you forget and those never work. Mine was always percentage based. So I always knew that I was 50% of my income was always going to go towards living expenses. That's where a big chunk of your money goes. And then I always knew that 30% of my my paycheck or my scholarship check at the time, my stipend, was going to go towards, at that time, saving. I wasn't investing as much because the margins were super small off of what I was making. So that 30% was tiny. And then the 10% was that 10 to 20% that was left over. Yeah. So that's 80. So that 20% was going out to have fun. Kind of fun money. And I would break it down in percentages, which was easier for me. But then I would write it out. What is that dollar?
Where would you write it? A spreadsheet?
Spreadsheet. I was big on just an Excel spreadsheet and then just having everything tied together on a auto sum. So then you could you have the sum of all that. And then when you put new entries in, it would just add it on.
Because your brain works in spreadsheets, right?
Yeah. So that worked better for me, the percentage breakdown. So I knew that as that income increased when I got into professional football and it was a little more, and then I was working IT and working a real job was a little more, the percentages are never changing. the dollar amount does.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, that's what happened. Hopefully you're making more money.
Right. And then you're saving more, and then you're able to spend more and you have more fun.
Exactly. So the dollar amounts increase, like the expenditures, like, oh, I can go out and do this now. That's more than I could do before when I was kind of broke in college. Throughout college, I feel like that's a big thing. Guys are led to buy cars for some reason as soon as they step foot on the college campus. And like, I mean, if you need a car, you need to buy a car somehow.
Right.
But your go-to shouldn't be, I mean, now cars, if you're wanting to buy like a sportier vehicle, you're looking upwards of like $40,000 in some cases, brand new off the lot. And that's one of those things that I was always like, all right, if I have to accrue some debt and that's the only way I can pay for something I actually need, then you just got to bite the bullet. And like, I mean, I live in a house, bank owns part of my house technically, because I didn't have, you know, that much money just laying around. But that was a need. Like I need it so my family can grow into, we have a place to go home. And so the same thing with a car. Like if there's a lemon that's sitting there going from point A to point B, and maybe it has a dent in it or something like that, but everything checks out and you're like, okay, like this isn't cool, but
Get you there.
Roll with it. Yeah.
You ever heard of the 3-8 rule?
No, I haven't.
It's something from it's a show called The Money Guy. And that's like kind of guidelines to, if you need to finance a car, use the 23-8 rule. 20% down. Don't finance the car for more than 3 years. And then it shouldn't be more than 8% of your monthly income. So like if you are going to finance a car, a lot of people, the average car payment now is like $800 per month.
That is like climbing.
That's just so much money. But for most people, unless you make a ton of money, that wouldn't fit into 23-8.
Right.
And also like, a 3-year car payment, there are some car payments that are 6 years or 7 years. And so 23-8 is kind of the scope that I like to tell people. It's from the Money Guy show, but if you do need to borrow money for a car, stick within that. Just like, other rules on, how much you should or shouldn't spend on a house or on other things in your financial life.
Right. That's a good one. I've actually never heard that one, but I'll right on with that, because I've just seen guys that it's like, hey, like what's going on?
Yeah. There's a story of an athlete that I know at a different university, and he had a small NIL deal. And so he bought a truck, and his truck payment matched his NIL deal. And so all his money was going to that. And unfortunately lost the NIL deal, and
you're still responsible.
For the truck. And so I got to have a really exciting conversation with him about kind of how to navigate out of that. But it's tough when people have a lot of their monthly income wrapped up for debt payments and car payments, things like that.
Yeah. If you can live debt free, highly encourage it. That's the best way to go. The best thing that somebody's told me is like, if you're accruing debt, that means you can't afford it. Right. And that's the truth. You can't afford it on the spot. Now, there's still needs that need to be met. So I fully understand that. And
what's your view on credit cards?
So I will say that credit cards are something that if you very closely manage them, I would recommend.
Yeah.
But you have to...
You have credit cards?
Yes. But you have to know yourself very well, because that rolling balance is where they try to get you.
Right.
Not realizing how much you spend, because it doesn't go straight out of your bank account. It just like keeps piling up. But for me, every week, I mean, I'm serious. At the end of the week, when I go through buying the things that I need, I always pay my balance off in full.
Yeah. Never paying interest,
getting cash back on a card, and also just making sure that I'm aware, okay, this week I spent $250. Like that just left my account as of Sunday or Monday, whenever it actually rolls over on that. I have heard a lot of philosophies from Dave Ramsey that's like never ever go into debt unless it's for a house, and never ever own a credit card.
Right.
And that's where I would just fundamentally disagree, because what are you supposed to tell people that, we just talked about needing a car. What do you tell somebody that needs a car and they're like, well, Dave Ramsey said I should never ever.
Like you need a car.
Yeah. And so there are steps into like, you just got to get a car, and then try to put, like you said, as much down as possible and be realistic with it, as realistic as possible, and move on from there. But I think the same thing with credit cards, because we're a credit-based society too. Right. Like everything runs through a background check, and they see if you had on-time payments and this and that. So, and if you're a student too, you can get student cards, which is great. Or now they have credit building cards that function like a credit card, but they auto pay your balance for you.
Or like a debit card
spot and deduct it from your account, which is cool. So I don't think there's any excuse to not build your credit and be responsible with one.
Yeah.
Now, if you know yourself and you're just going to run it up, then I mean, come on, we got to be real here.
Yeah.
If you turn around and you're saying, oh, I make, this amount, but my credit card bill outweighs that by 3 times for this month.
Average credit card debt in America is $6,500.
Yeah, that's substantial.
Yeah, so that's definitely what you want to stay away from. But you're right. I mean, using it to build credit, using it wisely, totally cool with that.
Yeah, and they have their benefits too. But but they also are in it to make money.
Oh yeah,
they're a business.
They are not your friend. They're there to make money, and they're betting on you misusing the product.
Yes,
because they make money when you do.
100%. So it's like, come on. I mean, that's my philosophy is just know yourself, and make good choices.
Cool,
make good choices.
Well, on behalf of all UTSA fans everywhere, just want to say thank you for all you've done for the university. And I mean, I know you personally and love you and your family. So thanks for hanging out with me. And it's good to get to talk to you today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
It was great.
Yeah.